Good evening and welcome to the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Company's Continuous Replay Come Together, presented by New York Live Arts. I'm Janet Wong, the Associate Artistic Director. We are live streaming to you from New York, the ancestral homeland of the Lenape people. The spirit of Arnie Zane, co-founder of the company and choreographer of the original Continuous Replay, is with us tonight. Arnie may have left us 32 years ago, but his work continues to bring us together. We would like to thank everyone who has made this evening possible, including our wonderful group of presenting partners from across the country. Our composer, the one and only John Oswald, who has created a new score specially for this performance. And of course, the performers. 44 current and former members of the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Company came together, while in isolation, in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. We are proud to be fundraising for 3 amazing organizations: the Black Strategy Fund, the Brotherhood Sister Soul, and Buy from a Black Woman. Please donate if you can. 100% of the net proceeds will be granted to the 3 organizations. You can donate by texting Live Arts to 24365, or you can donate on the event webpage. The fundraiser will continue through November 27th. Your host for this evening is our very own Bill T. Jones, Artistic Director of the company and New York Live Arts. We are honored to have with us Anthony Romero, Executive Director of the ACLU, to kick off the event in a conversation with Bill. They will be joined by the founders of the 3 organizations, Patrisse Cullors, Khary Lazarre-White, and Nikki Porcher. The evening will conclude with the world premiere of Continuous Replay Come Together. The link to the program can be found in your pre-show email on the webpage and in the chat. And now, please welcome Anthony Romero and Bill T. Jones.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's very special for us. It's a very, very special time in the life of New York Live Arts. We are pleased to be presenting a very rich program tonight. We're going to meet some very interesting people. And the first person that you're going to meet is a real hero of mine, Anthony Romero of the ACLU. And Anthony is the Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union, the nation's premier defender of civil liberties. He took the helm of the organization just 7 days before the September 11th, 2001 attacks. He is the ACLU's 6th executive director and the first Latinx and openly gay man to serve in that capacity. Born in New York City to parents who hailed from Puerto Rico, Romero was the first in his family to graduate from high school. He is a graduate of Stanford University Law School and Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School of Public Policy and International Affairs. Anthony, good evening.
And the only thing that matters is that I am a friend and a big admirer of Bill T. Jones. And I am thrilled to be in any virtual room, in any virtual setting with you, my dear man.
Well, such a charming defender of our civil liberties. But Anthony, I'm going to be a little provocative here. I was reading the ACLU, the issues on your website are immigration, LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, criminal justice, security and privacy, voting rights, capital punishment, disability rights, free speech, HIV, human rights, juvenile justice, national security, prisoners' rights, racial justice, religious liberties, smart justice, criminal justice, women's rights. Where are you at on culture?
It's embedded throughout. That's a great question. That's a great question. We have to reorganize that. It's like the index that doesn't have the major set of issues, because the First Amendment and the work we've done around freedom of expression all is about culture. And a lot of the issues that we're fighting is about the right for individuals to express themselves. It's funny you should raise that. The first LGBT case that we took was on behalf of Lillian Hellman, a lesbian author, the Children's Hour. Mm-hmm. And over the years, we've been fighting these banned books, efforts, everything from Ulysses to Harry Potter over the years. And even more recently, it's been about the the ability for authors and artists to express themselves. And so I think you make a very good point. I got to change that website. I mean, you caught me. But
Well,
I just think the human experience and what we believe in is the ability to express oneself the way one wants, with dignity, in whatever way one wishes, to associate with whomever one wishes, to love whomever one wants to love and marry, to worship any God or no God at all. And so it's a belief in the beauty and the power of the individual, and that we get to decide what we do, what we say, what we love, how we express ourselves, how we dance, right? Like you do.
Beautifully put. You know, I was thinking today about how I would start our discussion. I was thinking back to a time when I saw myself as a card-carrying member of the counterculture, radical, so much so that I wouldn't vote. You know, the voting was the purview of those bureaucrats and the military.
You voted this last time, right? Because otherwise we're going to have an argument. All right.
I didn't vote until I was 26.
Oh my God!
And that was quite a thing to confess to young people this time. But what I was thinking was, when I decided to become an adult and do things like vote and care about things like free speech, all those things, I became one of the first organizations that I became a regular supporter of was the ACLU, along with Planned Parenthood and the NAACP.
All right. You picked the trifecta. With those three, you could go anywhere in the world where you want.
Well, I thought that made an enlightened citizen. You know, it made a citizen who was well-rounded, and there was even something spiritual about this idea of freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And what do you think about that?
I think it is. I think this really is. You know, I feel in many respects I run a secular church for people who want to believe in human dignity and human expression and human rights. And we believe, that's why I'm here. You know, I love the way you introduced me, because I have to restrain myself because you're my buddy. I only I have censorious elements in me when they start reading parts of my bio. I love this organization because, I'm a Latin gay guy, but I love the ACLU because I don't have to pick an issue or pick a tribe. You know, I'm Puerto Rican, but I care about undocumented immigrants. I'm a guy, but I'm a feminist. I'm fair-skinned, but I care about racial justice. I have not been incarcerated for, but I care about the rights of people who are behind bars. And what I love about my organization is that it's the one organization where you can manifest on the rights and dignity of all people. And what's funny is what's old, that was a 100-year-old mission, is kind of what's new, right? These youngins who I have in my organization who are always telling me, what they want me to do and how I need to do better. And they're great because they are a new generation of leadership that are demanding that we see the connections. I was speaking to a bunch of high school students, Bill T. Jones, and they were, they gave me a kind of a lovely, warm reception. Then the next question was, what are you doing on climate change? And I said, well, we're not working on climate change. We're the American Civil Liberties Union. And then with this, 2 minutes earlier, they had given me a standing ovation. The next thing they were doing is booing and hissing. Because they see these things as connected, like climate change and people who have lost their homes and, folks living on the bayou who are kind of losing their homes and their property and people who are being displaced and, climate change refugees. And I love the fact that these issues are indeed connected. It's about the ability to live life with dignity as we define it.
Do you think that's going to be the next issue that's really going to be dividing us? I notice right now, Mr. Biden, President-elect Biden, is already feeling the heat from social persons interested in the social aspects of global warming. What do you feel about that? How do you think he should handle that?
I think it's important for President-elect Biden, and I say that with not Vice President Biden, President-elect Biden, whether this president likes it or not. I think there's a conversation and a dialogue that establishment leaders need to open up different lines of communication so they can kind of hear and learn from a different generation of leaders. Some of the other folks you're going to invite onto this call, hopefully soon, who are leaders, a new generation of leaders, you know, like the founder of the BLM movement. Oh my God, we need to sit and listen. This is not a time for the old man on the porch like me to preach. This is a time for us to sit back and listen. Let the next generation lead. Tell us where we need to go. Have humility in the fact that we are where we are, partly because we didn't do it right or do it well enough. So we need to make room for a new generation of leaders who will kind of set a path and then double down on that path. And I think, you know, I am hopeful about President-elect Biden. I think he's surrounding himself with some really first-rate people. I think some of the people he's considering, I can't wait to see who he picks for the different top jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to reach into the next generation of leaders, and he's got to put some folks of who are half his age in serious jobs, because they are not the leaders of tomorrow. They are the leaders of today, and other leaders need to make room for the leaders of today. So that's.
And I hope that this idea that was floated around Mr. Obama's second term, this idea, why is there not a cabinet level position for culture, arts and culture in our country?
I agree.
Yeah, can we count on you to be an advocate?
You bet. And you know, we've been fighting off the kind of the efforts. You know, you've seen it, you've lived it, you are at the center of it. I don't have to tell you anything, but we see how they tried to restrict culture and the arts.
How so from your point of view?
Well,
how so?
I mean, I think it's everything from the controversies around the NEA, you know, and Karen Finley and Mapplethorpe and others, and just the government trying to regulate the content of speech and expression and the human spirit, because they feel like they can pull the levers because of government money. And that's precisely, that's what makes America so distinct. It's the leaders and the activists and the artists who help us understand what's possible and what's in front of us. And that's why I think, yes, we do need a kind of a cabinet level culture secretary. And that the culture ends up being kind of a football, the culture wars. And we need to stop trying to use culture and communities, especially communities of color. Because let's be clear, some of the folks are they're not trying to censor the Frick. They may have a lot of nudes in the Frick. I love the Frick. I go there a bunch. But they didn't try to censor the Frick. They tried to go after Karen Finley and Roger and Mapplethorpe, right? And it was their nudes and what they did with the human body that was disgusting to the establishment. And that's exactly what
I'm always saying that I think the arts should be dangerous. The arts, you should not be able to just decorate your dinner party or political platform with high-profile artists, but artists really should be right in there keeping things lively. And on that note, Anthony, should we invite our guest on tonight?
You bet. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Some of these people are my heroes.
This is a very special evening because we have, our goal is to bring to the viewers the three organizations that we think are exemplary and, following on what Anthony was saying, leading the way into the future. And let's go into it. Artist, organizer, educator, and popular public speaker, Patrisse Cullors is a Los Angeles native, co-founder and executive director of the Black Lives Matter Global Network, founder of grassroots Los Angeles-based organization Dignity and Power Now. For the last 20 years, Patrisse has been on the front lines of criminal justice reform and led Reform LA Jails, Yes or R campaign, a ballot initiative that passed by a 73% landslide victory in March 2020. Cullors is currently the faculty director of Arizona's Prescott College New Social and Environmental Arts Practice MFA program, which she developed, nesting a curriculum focused on the intersection of art, social justice, and community organizing that is first of its kind in the nation. Cullors has exhibited widely across Los Angeles and the United States, from traditional arts institutions to public spaces. Outside of performance and activism, Cullors is a New York Times bestselling author of When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. Welcome, Ms. Cullors.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Bill T. Jones. I'm so honored. I'm a big fan of yours, Bill T. Jones. I've been following your work for a really long time. I actually grew up as a dancer, so.
Yes, I hope we get to talk about that a bit. I'd like to know the perspective on that. Yes. And why don't we move on to, and we have Nikki Porcher. Now this is a mystery woman. Nikki Porcher is an advocate for Black women and the founder of Buy from a Black Woman. She has a list of accomplishments, but the only one that matters is her efforts to keep going, says her bio. And I hope that, hello, Nikki, how are you?
Hi, hello, Bill. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Patrisse. Thank you for having me.
You always get eyebrows raised with that bio? Give us
Well, it's a reminder that, I'm here for Black women. It's not really about me or what I've done. It's that I keep going for Black women. So I don't want to put all the shine on me. It's just, as long as I keep going for Black women and bringing awareness to them, then that's all that matters.
Well, that's great. Let's bring in our next guest, and then I'd like to circle back and have you both tell us a little bit more about the how and why of your organization. Khary Lazarre-White, born and raised in New York City, Khary is a social entrepreneur, novelist, educator, activist, and attorney. In 1995, at the age of 21, Khary co-founded the Brotherhood Sister Soul, a now nationally renowned Harlem-based social justice organization that focuses on political education, comprehensive youth development, and organizing. Welcome, Khary.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and thank you, Bill, for the invitation.
Well, it's a great honor to have you three here. I don't care what the order is. You all want to jump in. We'd like to know more about what you do. For instance, should we start with you, Patrisse? Could you give us, what do you think we should know about your organization? What's it about? What's going on?
Sure. Tonight, I'm actually representing the Black Strategy Fund. And it was really something I created in response to this uprising. What I was realizing, so many of our organizations across our movement have very little capacity. And so much of the work that we're doing is trying to catch up to what's happening on the ground, trying to catch up to what's happening, especially what was happening in the Trump administration. Yeah. And so we created the Black Strategy Fund to be a capacity builder for Black organizing and Black activists in particular. We have spent a lot of our time this summer working on defund the police campaigns and divestment out of punishment and investment into care. So we've supported groups like Movement for Black Lives. We've supported smaller coalitions like here in California in SLO, San Luis Obispo County, which is probably the last conservative stronghold in California. There's a district attorney named Dan Dow that has prosecuted many young protesters or is attempting to prosecute them. And so I was brought in to support these young people. And so the Black Strategy Fund has been building up the leadership of young Black and Brown people in the Central Coast. And I'm so excited because we are really teaching these young folks what a district attorney is. Yeah. I think ACLU, you did such a good job early on at reminding the community who our district attorneys are, what they do, how they impact us, and that we get to vote them in or vote them out. And so we've been working on that. And lastly, you all were talking about having a cultural hub. We deeply believe in arts and culture inside of the Black Strategy Fund. And so we've been working with groups like Trap Heels, which is a creative agency that works mostly at the intersection of movement and entertainment, on how do we develop art and cultural infrastructure inside of our movement so that when we're talking policy and all the things that I think are fun and exciting, we can actually create more infrastructure that make it creative. And so I'm very interested in the creative space. And I think Black folks have done such an amazing job historically on using the creative to talk about the political.
Patrisse, may I just take you back for a moment, because it was such a divisive issue in the campaign that seems to be continuing. The idea of defund the police. Have you not changed your language? Have you not changed your choice of words? Reorganize police funding. You're still saying defund.
Yeah, I think it's important that I say defund. And then I think it's important that I then talk about what it means. I do use words like reallocating dollars out of punishment and into care, but I don't want to allow for people's fear to stop me from saying something that I think actually created one of the most important conversations in this country, which was reevaluating the use of police and incarceration. So just like Black Lives Matter, everybody was afraid to say it. We all remember, everybody was afraid to say Black Lives Matter. Everybody was like, don't you think that's too strong a language? Aren't you going to divide the community? And now every single corporation is saying it. So I deeply believe that, I don't want to be stubborn. I believe in being strategic, but I also don't want to water down what I believe is true, which is police are have too much funding. They have too much power. And they need, and the right knows what defunding is. They've defunded education. They've defunded healthcare. They have defunded everything else. So it's not untrue that they don't know what we're talking about.
So I can just jump in because I want to say this is when Patrisse brought us around, right? I'm sorry, Bill. I'm kind of
please go for it. Go for it. Mm-hmm.
So the ACLU has been at criminal justice for literally 100 years. From the Scottsboro Boys, Miranda was our client, our case. Gideon, the right to court-appointed attorney. Driving while black and brown was our litigation against, the jurisdictions in California and Maryland, or first cases with Michelle Alexander, Bloomberg on stop and frisk. But when it really came to an inflection point again this summer, I stopped and I said, what we're doing ain't working. It's helped, and we've won some of those lawsuits, but it has not brought us to where we need to go. And that's when Patrisse and I had a conversation where she helped me to think about the defund framework. And I was like, well, let me read about it. It's not something I had not spent as much time, obviously, as others have. And I read what I needed to. I was schooled by Patrisse in terms of the knowledge and the language, and the money is the problem, that we gave them too much money, and they're too big, and they're too ubiquitous, and that we are criminalizing the lives of communities of color because we have given the police forces so much money, 40% of our budgets in some instances. And if you want to reimagine police, you need to reimagine them smaller, shrunk, kind of brought down to size. So I think it's not a conversation we should run from. And I think now all this stuff about Trump using the law and order piece, and therefore we don't have to recalibrate our demands, right? We just need to be heard and vigorous in it. I'll be damned if I'm going to kind of change our point of view and our analysis just because some man got 70 plus million votes who's a fascist, right?
But nothing to sneeze at. 73 million people is a lot of people.
I understand, but he's trying to pull a coup d'etat. So I have never called him a fascist before today, right? I've called him many things, but when he's trying to haul people in from Michigan to tell them to subvert the black vote in Wayne County, that doesn't, the only way you can call that. So I think I love the defund framework because you can quantify it. And
this is, and Patrisse, this is one of the purview of Black Strategy Fund, correct?
Correct.
It's sort of I think with time, it's only going to become more fractious, don't you? You anticipate that going forward in the future, correct?
I think it gets harder before it gets better. I spent a few years, still calling out Black Lives Matter under a white supremacist government who called us terrorists and allowed for, the underbelly to rise up against us. But it didn't stop saying Black Lives Matter. It didn't stop naming the demands for Black people. So I think it's going to take time for people to understand what we mean. And I think it's our duty to not shirk away from the conversations that we were so boldly putting forward this summer. I think that's critical for us.
That's great. Let's move on to our next awardee, actually, Nikki Porcher. Nikki, you're the mystery woman, and you have a very interesting story. I was reading something. You've been a veteran. You've had several degrees from community college, and you've had a lot of lives already. You want to tell us more about your organization?
Yeah, so I am the founder of an organization called Buy from a Black Woman. We empower, educate, and inspire Black women business owners by spreading the importance of supporting and actually buying for Black women. I'm very strongly passionate about that. My previous lives, I always say, like, through my 20s, I was collecting skills and degrees and experiences necessary to actually like be the founder when it was time for Buy from a Black Woman to come into me. So all the stuff that I was doing, you know, I was just doing, I thought it was just things I was doing. But yeah, I have a degree in art history, graphic design. I even went and got my phlebotomy certificate just in case I need to draw blood one day. But you know, all these things planted seeds for Buy from a Black Woman. And it really was one of those things where I was just like, okay, I'm doing this stuff. I'm not feeling fulfilled. What am I supposed to do with myself? I truly believe in signs. I truly believe in taking time to be still so you can listen to what it is that you're supposed to be receiving. And I was forced to be still. I'm also a half marathoner. So I was like going on this track of like running a half marathon in every state was like the goal for mine. And I missed my flight to Florida, which, you know, who really wants to go to Florida now, right? But I missed my flight to Florida and I was so upset. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go run this marathon. Like, how am I going to get to Florida? But I couldn't get a flight in time to make the race. So I went to this event in Atlanta and I was the only Black woman there, which is so crazy because it's Atlanta. And I'm just like, why am I the only Black person here? And it was a place filled with business owners, right? So all of these white women were selling their homemade goods at this very high-end, overpriced price. And this one woman, she had chapstick and she was selling it for $20 and she was sold out. And that was just crazy to me because I like chapstick, but I've never had $20 chapstick that changed my life. But when I thought about that, I was like, well, people should be buying for Black women like this. And this is 2016, again, before, you know, everything was cool. So like, oh, let's buy Black. It was just like, no, we should be buying Black. There's so many Black women out there who are using their skills and talents to make the world better. So many contributions to this country is happening at the backs of Black women, but we're not being supported, we're not being funded. So like, let me use my voice, my platform, my skill sets, all the things I've collected to do my part in my community and advocate on the behalf of people who look like me, who think like me, and who want to make the world better for people like me. And that's really how Buy from a Black Woman came to be. It started off as a blog. I was just blogging about things that I bought from a Black woman. And then like people saw it. They're like, oh, can you talk about my business? And then like, people like, hey, I see what you're doing. It probably costs money to do that. Let me donate money. And again, remember, I was collecting things. So I had to work in marketing. I had worked in nonprofits. These are all things I had at my forefront. So when the opportunity presented itself, it was very easy for me to go into form a nonprofit because I knew everything because I had worked in so many nonprofits. It was easy for me to create a logo and get my business license because again, those were things I did, those were degrees I had. So it just really was a happenstance, but it was seeds that were being planted for something I didn't even know was growing.
Well, how do the brothers feel? How do men respond to being excluded from the title?
Well, you know, it's not excluding, but it's the same way as when people say all lives matter. We're not talking about that. You know, this is for Black women. I always say you're free to, you know, start your own, but don't call it Buy from a Black man because I do own those rights and I have a lawyer who will come after you. So call it something else. You know, but it's not about that. Like our saying is when you support a Black woman business owner, you support a whole community. And the stats don't lie. Black women are leading when it comes to degrees. They're leading when it comes to starting a business. So if you are a Black man or anybody else who's like, oh man, what about me? Well, why are you not doing something to empower the group that's empowering you?
Amen. Well, let's move on to the gentleman here, Khary. Khary, you want to tell us a bit about your organization, and maybe you could address this question, grassroots activism versus large-scale movements. Do you have could you take on both of those things? More cis, but also this idea of the small versus the large.
Sure. So Brotherhood Sister Soul is a Black founded, Black led, comprehensive social justice organization. We do our work based in Harlem, but we do a lot of work city and statewide, and we have a national reach in certain areas. We really work in 3 spaces: comprehensive youth development that's done through a political lens. So it's young people studying in Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean with us. It's young people defining what it means to be a woman and a leader and a sister, or what it means to be a man or a leader and a brother, kind of developing a moral and ethical code on how they want to live their life. But it's about becoming change makers and activists. Our aspiration is to be the SNCC of today, to be doing the political training of young people so that they can go out there and change the world. We always say that they're not the leaders of tomorrow, they are the leaders of today. And so for us, that is the first piece of what we do. The second is that we've published 5 books of curricula. We've trained over 3,000 educators across the country on our model, and had formal programming modeled in Brazil and Bermuda and in other parts of the United States. And that's our way to try to contribute to the field, never to say we have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination. We're all learning from each other constantly, but that we can bring our organizing, our arts education, our activism model to other parts of the nation. And then the third area is that, we want to change the root conditions of inequality, of racial and economic inequality in this country. We are an unapologetically intersectional organization that deals with the political through a lens of race and class and gender and the history of this nation. And that reality, we think, kind of lights a light beneath our young people to go and to activate and to seek change. And so your question about kind of national organizing and policy organizing versus local, I think at times that's a separation. I think sometimes it's a false separation. I think when you look at kind of the history of social change in this country, whether it's the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, the women's movement, the LGBTQ movement for freedom, the anti-Vietnam War movement that brought down a president, these were young people leading these efforts. Diane Nash was 18 years old when she's on a freedom ride. Martin King was 25 when he's leading the Montgomery bus boycott. This was done locally. And I think there's this reimagining of a lot of those movements of like huge protests and national efforts. These were small amounts of brave people in small towns all around this country who changed the face of the country with local organizing that inspired folks. And whether you're creating the Black Panther Party and it's moving throughout the South, and then all of a sudden it gets its formal name in Oakland, yeah, but where did the roots come from? And the roots came from the South and from small towns again. And so I think, first off, those 2 movements have to go hand in hand. I don't think you can have national policy organizing without local organizing. I think it's absolutely essential. And I also think that local organizers need to always keep their eye on the macro issues, that what we are trying to achieve is justice, racial justice, economic justice, full unapologetic freedom. And I appreciate Patrisse and Anthony's exchange, because I think we have to reframe narratives. We have to talk about this work in a work that's unapologetically seeking freedom and equity and equality, not fringe work. We want the whole thing. And I think
Anthony, you want to jump in? You want to say something?
It's great. I mean, I could just sit back. I mean, this is exactly right, Khary. And I think the more that we're able to train folk the way you are, and then train the teachers to kind of lean into these discussions, and then to have this expansive view is exactly right. And I do think it's about Nikki, like what you were saying before, it's about the material conditions of our lives, right? I feel like I'm going back to when I was kind of, I was a college student in Nicaragua in 1985, right? They would not put me in the Senate confirmation position because I definitely was with the Sandinistas, and I'm not afraid to say it. And it was all about the material conditions of our lives, right? That's when I read Gramsci and Marx and Engels and all this stuff. And we need to rethink economics in America and questions around wealth and assets. That is one thing I'm really passionate about. I don't have as much a way to actualize upon it at the ACLU, but we're beginning to think through what it means to be more directly engaged with economic justice as part of our racial justice platform. And there are some really interesting ideas that folks like Khary and others have, and certainly the women-owned businesses that Nikki's pushing, we'd have to find a way to supporting them. And we've got to find a way to deal with kind of business to business, but business to Black women businesses, right? And we've got to begin to support them. And I think it's an essential part of what we have to do. And this reckoning moment, I'll be quiet. The reckoning moment, we have to be bold in our demands, right? Mm-hmm. We have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I've been in a bunch of task forces where people are saying, what are we going to do? And how are we going to meet the moment? And look at the people in the streets. I'm like, you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because if it's comfortable, you're not doing enough.
Mm-hmm. And Patrisse, I was wondering if we might, just for a moment, this is one of those questions that people ask me sometime. I know that your purview is, you're expanding, but is the Black Lives Movement closely tied to LGBTQ rights? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I mean, firstly, I think it's really important for people to know who co-founded Black Lives Matter. It's 3 women. 2 of us are queer. And in a lot of ways, when we started BLM, we were trying to start something that looked at and identified all Black people. We had been in a lot of Black spaces, Black left spaces in particular. When we brought up Black women or queer people, that it was often told to us, well, we're not going to talk about that right now. We're just going to focus on Blackness, as if Blackness is only maleness. And we started BLM as an intervention to conversation around police violence and police terror, but also as an intervention for younger Black folks who were not being seen, who were being underutilized and underengaged. I believe as a young Black queer woman who was raised poor, I had a lot to give. And I was often undermined and minimized. And so Black Lives Matter became a central hub for young Black queer women in particular to have a new kind of conversation. It's 7 years later, so I don't consider myself a young person anymore. I'm young, but I'm not a young person anymore. And so our work is also to create a pathway to build new leaders and to build young leaders in particular. Here in Los Angeles, there is a Black Lives Matter Youth Vanguard is what they call themselves. Youngest member is 9 years old, and they take themselves very seriously, as they should. They feel an obligation to this work. They were sitting in front of Jackie Lacey's Hall of Justice for 3 years trying to get the DA out of office, and they helped make that happen. They're the young people who stopped random searches happening on their campuses, and now they're the young people that are going to get cops out of schools. And so there is this necessity, I believe, for our movements, especially inside of Black liberation movements, to onboard and build a highway for new leadership. That's my goal. I was lucky enough to be trained by organizers who were part of the civil rights movement and who saw my leadership as necessary, and told me it is your job to also train new leaders. It is not exciting and it is not strategic to be alone out there. You must build your team. And so that is part of the project of the Black Strategy Fund as well.
Mm-hmm. So before we move on to the next part of our program, the 3 of you, Nikki, Khary, Patrisse, if you were to help viewers, somebody who maybe didn't know the work of any of you, what do you think the themes are that connect your 3 organization? What would it be? What would connect you 3?
Oh, I can start. I would say leadership development sounds really like something that connects us. But also I would say unapologetic Blackness also connects us.
So Blackness is a thing, right?
Absolutely.
It is a thing.
It's a thing.
Anybody want to take a stab at what is Blackness?
Oh, it can be a feeling, but it's one of those things where it's hard to explain because you're born into it and you grow into it and you grow to appreciate it. It's like your features as a child, you don't really appreciate it until you're an adult. Where you're like, oh my gosh, my nose is too big, or I don't like my lips. But then when you get older, you're like, my nose is royalty, my lips are full. So even with Blackness, it can sometimes be one of those things you develop into and you start loving. But to Patrisse's point, I would say our being together that ties us together, the contributions that Black people are making in the world, in this country, really ties us together. Like all three of us are leaders in our own right, doing things to make our world and worlds outside of us better for the people that we are going to leave the legacy for. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Khary, yeah, that's eloquent. Khary, you want anything you want to put in there?
I think Blackness, is inherently in this country, in the Caribbean, throughout the diaspora. It's soulful, it's interconnected, it's innovative. I mean, it's about kind of creating out of conditions that multiple generations were born into. And I think that innovation, that soulfulness, that connection is what unites across the diaspora and then returns to the continent. I mean, I think that that's the kind of interconnected fiber. And I think you see that in the arts. I think you see that in movement building. I think you see that in protests. I think you see that in every aspect of how we show up is connected to Blackness.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you want to talk, what about allyship? What about it? There's Blackness, and then there are the people who love us. What do you say to them? What do you say to others who don't understand how one? Because you're fierce. The way you three, it sounds like it could be pushing people away, but I don't think that's what's going on. How do you assuage those feelings that there's something about this word unapologetic has been very strong tonight. Unapologetic. So what do you say to people is it to calm them down, stir them up, put your arm around them? Are we one? Is there a we?
I'll speak on that because we do get that, it's called by from a Black woman. And we're very important when we say in the people who support them. So the people who support them is that part. If you are truly, genuinely want to support Black women, Black businesses, you're not worried or concerned about feeling some type of way by reading the words. You understand, like, okay, this is for Black women. I respect that. I see that. What can I do to help? And it's not me saying, oh, well, you're white, you can't do this. It's them saying, hey, I know I'm white. What can I do? And that's the language that comes to it. Again, like I spoke on earlier, like I believe that there's signs. I believe the universe does things. Everything's working for my good and everything happens for a reason. So I don't have to worry about those who are being offended because they're not here to help the mission and help the cause. Those who really want to help will find the ways and will look for ways to help. And when they don't know, they'll say, hey, I don't know how to help. How can I?
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on that question of allyship or the we?
I guess I would jump in, because I think part of what the ACLU and my own personal life, learning to be the best ally you can be requires listening and humility and a willingness to listen and to be led. We all talk about leadership, but there's also have to be followership. And there was a lot of concern within my organization when the inflection point came and the moment of racial reckoning was beginning. And I made the decision, I'm like, we're going to take our cue from the BLM movement. We're going to take our cue from Patrisse Cullors. And there were some within my organization who felt like I had abrogated my leadership or had kind of diminished us by taking my cue from someone else. I'm like, we need to listen. We need to lean in and listen. And we have to be comfortable with not having the answers. We need to know that we don't have the answers. And Blackness is also, for me, is America. Right? It's just like you can't think of this country without kind of Blackness, and the kind of America's original sin and its wealth and its culture and its background and its history. It's just, that's why this description of it as other, I find so repulsive and so pernicious, because it really is, there's nothing more basic American than what the demands we're hearing from, Nikki and Khary and Patrisse and from the folks on the street. And I think I am excited. I am not a youngin'. was, but no longer. I am excited by watching the leadership and watching the folks turn out on the street. And I think this could be the golden age of activism. And so I'm just hoping that we can get out of your way and let you all lead, because that's what's necessary.
So, any last words? Today I was reading a journalist who was saying that there is, coming from the left now, there's a new totalitarianism. There is groupthink. The left is no longer the place of free speech, but it's a place where you have to speak correctly. You've all heard this, right? So how do you deal with that? Because, I'm sure you don't suffer people who are going to ask you to, well, but you still say defund the police, right? So how do you deal with this question that the left has no room now for debate? The left has no room for nuance and differences of opinion.
I'll jump in first on that one. I think that goes back to, something you and I have talked about, Bill, before, about this idea of changing narratives. When you look at identity politics in this country, identity politics is the founding of America. Identity politics is being an indigenous person in a state that's a reservation that's called North Dakota, named after your people and taken from your people. That's identity politics. Identity politics is segregation. Identity politics is 2 million people in prison because of who's in prison. That's identity politics. If you push back on that and you name those realities and you unapologetically talk about gender and class and race and oppression in this country because of those three overarching areas, now you're told that you are the one practicing an identity politics. You are the one silencing and pushing away others, as opposed to what you're doing is actually naming the reality of this country. And I think what Anthony did was frame it really, really well. There is no America without that. And for so long, our voices have been silenced in all those different ways. I mean, you mentioned in your introduction, Anthony's upbringing. Patrisse mentioned 3 women, 3 Black women, 2 queer, founding Black Lives Matter. These were voices that were suppressed for so long. And turn it and say, we're silencing people. And of course, there's an element of the left that at times can't get into a conversation with others. Is that an element? Sure, that's an element. But that's not really what is driving movements across this country. To me, it's a distraction from the real issues that we should be talking about.
Okay. Speak now and forever hold your peace. Okay, no, you won't hold your peace. I know you don't.
I just want to, my closing words is to folks, because people always ask, well, what do we do? And my answer is always join something. Do not go at it alone. You don't have to. Yeah. And in fact, all the work, all the changes that have ever been made have been made inside of a collective, an organization, a group of people. And so there are 4 different organizations you can join. And if you don't join these, join something. We have so much more work to do. Take a break if you need to. It was a lot of work these last 4 years. So if you need to take a break, you can. Claim the victory, you must. But know that we still have so much more to do. And so join something so you don't feel like you have to go at it alone.
Yeah. I would just add to that I totally agree with Patrisse. I mean, I think institutions matter. And in our communities that have been underserved and overlooked and exploited, we have to build those institutions. And the institutions that you're profiling today, Bill T. Jones, with this event, are critically important because we have to build the institutions that really amplify the power of the individuals. These are fantastically powerful 4 individuals, the 4 of you, right? But we're not as powerful unless we have institutions that can amplify the power, the wisdom, the training, the economic punch, the human spirit and the grace of your dance. It doesn't get projected or amplified without building strong institutions. So you have to pick a side and pick a cause, pick an institution, because that's the staying power.
And I hope that those persons who are watching tonight will actually understand what this event is about and give you more air underneath your wings to go, because I think we get it and we need you. So I would say on that, thank you very much, Patrisse Cullors of the I always confused. I want to say Black Lives Matter, but the
Black Strategy Fund.
Black Strategies, yes, a brand new organization, right. And thank you, Khary, Lazarre-White of Brotherhood in Harlem, and the mysterious Nikki Porcher of By from a Black Woman. We love you. Please come to New York Live Arts. Let's get to know each other even better. And thank you very much, everybody. And
thank you for this time.
And Anthony Romero, you are a gem, and you are with us. Charming fighter you are. It's a pleasure to know you, and let's keep going.
Always my pleasure, Bill T. Jones.
Good night now. Good night. So we're going to move on now to the second half of our event tonight. I'm very excited to be for two reasons. One, we get a chance to learn more about my partner and co-founder of Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Company, Arnie Zane, and we get to see one of his iconic works now expanded into this kind of a requiem for all the persons who have come through our organization and an invitation to a whole new generation of people. So without further ado, let's go to the film, which is a beautiful thing that Janet Wong, my associate artistic director, has made. Thank you. And I'll return after the His aesthetic was informed by the still image in dialogue with the moving image. And that is his interest, as my interest, in independent film, non-narrative film, and so on. Arnie was smitten with Lucinda Childs and repetition. And I think that the kind of austere glamour of Lucinda Childs. The gestural language was a compendium of all of his interests: martial arts, the photography, art, all of those things. And he was organizing them, not exactly in a stream of consciousness, but something related to a stream of consciousness. Any gesture could follow any other gesture. He and I were starting a duet career together. Therefore, it was his work, and I was allowed to be the improviser. He was going to be the clock, and the little bit that you have of him dancing in Milan is actually when he decided he wanted to do clock and improvisation. His concern, ultimately, I think, was about form and truth. He was a formalist, and he believed in form and truth, and as a result, he believed in beauty. And he was an experimentalist and an innovator. He experimented with his camera, he experimented with video, and I think he was very much experimenting with this form. Ironically enough, because he passed away, it gave me entree to take it and continue experimentation that he might not have. I don't know, I can't imagine him doing that version of it that had nudity in it. It was in the face of the era of Jesse Helms. It was something political at the birth of this piece. when it went from being the solo to, which was a formal study for him. So continuous replay grew at a time when I was trying to affirm the identity of the company and embrace something about a legacy that was already controversial in that it was an interracial, same-sex duet where one of the members had passed away in a very public way from a disease that was considered in some quarters a shameful disease. As I think back on it, it was a crucial inflection point for me as an artist and a man who was grieving a partner and a collaborator, for the company that he and I had birthed as a rebuttal to the world that said as gay men we were eunuchs, that we could not reproduce. Keeping the company alive was me saying, this is the child that we made, and this piece represents our union. Therefore, it is at once a personal statement and it's a political statement. I did not know that it would become a rite of passage or a vehicle that would support and direct young dancers coming through our organization. I didn't know that it would become what it has been and endured in the way it has been.
one.
Wow. Wow. It's so good to see Arnie and all of those beautiful dancers. It's like my life flashes in front of my eyes. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. And we have the author of that film, Janet Wong, here with us.
Hi. Hi, I'm Janet. I'm the Associate Artistic Director of the company and of New York Live Arts. And I've been so nervous for the last 2 hours, so I don't think I can speak right now. But I made all the videos. There's one more coming up, the credits, so please stay for that. I'm here to give you a report on today's fundraiser. We have exceeded our third goal. Was it the third goal, actually? We are almost at 14,000. We're $13,700 some dollars. And this video will be on YouTube, and the fundraiser will continue through November 27. So please share with your friends and family. So we are at the end of our evening, right? And we have so many people to thank. We'll keep it short so we don't stay here all night. First of all, I want to thank our colleagues at New York Live Arts who've worked so hard for this. I want to give a special shout out to Kalmat. We want to thank our presenting partners who joined us on this live stream. There's no touring right now, so this is the way we come to you, and vice versa. And we hope to be coming to your city in person soon. We want to thank Anthony, Patrisse, Khary, and Nikki for joining us and for doing the amazing work that they do. And today, by the way, is Live from a Black Woman Day, and the day is not over yet. So go shopping after this. We want to thank John Oswald, composer. Wow, what an amazing composition you created for this event. I am in awe. We are big fans, so please check his work out. And of course, we want to thank the performers, all 44 of you. I hope you're all watching, and your kids and your pets. And you are our community. We are so grateful. And speaking of community, we want to give a shout out to our friends at our beloved Jacob's Pillow. As some of you may know, one of the theaters, Doris Duke, burnt down 2 days ago. So we are here for you. We're with you. And finally, we want to thank all of you who joined us on the live stream and all of you who have donated. Thank you for your generosity. And please continue to follow us, the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Company and New York Live Arts. Please support us if you can. And please continue to support the arts and the artists during this difficult time and beyond. Support them within your community and beyond. And I'm going to pass this back to Bill. Final words, Bill?
Art making is participation in the world of ideas. Art making is locating the inner landscape and finding the language to bring it into the world. I'm honored to have a collaborator like Janet and to have this entire evening tonight. Thank you to Anthony and all of the recipients of tonight's fundraiser. And don't be a stranger, let us see you, and let's be brave and go together into the future. Good night.
Good night.